I'm in 1 Samuel chapter 16. It says, So Samuel did what the Lord said. I'm in verse 4. And came to Bethlehem. And the elders of the city came trembling to meet him. Trembling. Notice that? And said, do you come in peace? Now, because granted, you better know that what he did to Agag, everybody heard it. And they knew that any action that Samuel took, he took it the direction of God. So if he killed that man and cut that man up, God was angry about something. So they was like, okay, you come in peace? Are we in trouble here? Why are you showing up here? Because wherever Samuel showed up, most of the time it was because God had something to say. So they're like, okay, why are you here? You see, but now I give them credit for something. I give them credit for understanding the role that Samuel played and for being conscious that they had to be careful. Okay? So they said, why are you here? Do you come in peace? It says, and he said, in peace I have come to sacrifice to the Lord. Consecrate yourselves and come with me to the sacrifice. He also consecrated Jesse and his sons and invited them to the sacrifice. Then it came about when they entered that he looked at Eliab and thought, surely. Now here's the human side of Samuel kicking in. He looks at Eliab, and Eliab looks like the better choice. In verse 6, it says, then it came about when he entered that he looked at Eliab and thought, surely the Lord's anointed is before him. Because apparently Eliab had the look of somebody who was a king. He may have been of nice stature and the right weight. You know how we pick political candidates. You know, they look a certain way. You know, they look, the haircut is right, and they wear the right kind of suit, and they're the right size and all of that. And we have an image that we look at. And this is real important because you see, this is God's way of showing us that he doesn't choose like we choose. Because to Samuel, Eliab fit the bill. He looked like what the king should look like. He may have been, tan and tall and all of that. He looked like a king. So Samuel says to himself, he says, surely, this is the king. This has got to be him. He looks like the part. It says, but the Lord said to Samuel, do not look at his appearance or at the height of his stature. I told you he was tall. Or the height of his stature. Where am I? Because I have rejected him. For God sees not as man sees. And this is an important passage for us. God sees not as man sees. For man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. Now, people have taken this passage of scripture out of context to justify dressing like a whore and going to church, and dressing like a hooker and going to church, and saying, well, God's looking at my heart. He don't care what I look like on the outside. That's not what this passage of scripture means. What it means is that your outward appearance does not necessarily determine who God has ordained you to be. And that's what this was about. So there is a way that you present yourself in the presence of God. It's not all right to just do anything. There is a way to do it. But what he was saying here is, because he has all of the right trappings, and he may sound right, he may know how to talk right, and yes, he may even be dressed correctly, does not mean that he's my choice. Because I know what's in his heart. And what's in his heart is not what I want for a king. Do you understand that? So this is important. This is important. And this is my response to people. We look often at people who get promoted on the job, and we don't understand why. And we feel like, well, why them? They don't seem to be all that and this and that. And we wonder why. Often it is because their heart indicates something that we haven't seen. Sometimes we don't see what's on the inside of them that might be good for the position that we don't possess. So we get upset with them and we say, well, why promote them? I'm just as good as they are. You may be physically, technically as good, but you may not have the heart for the job that they have. And then even in the negative circumstances, there's some folk who, I tell people all the time, there are some people, there are certain things at certain levels you have to do to function in certain job titles. And there's certain things I'm just not willing to do. And if you're not willing to do those things, then you really aren't fit for that position. And I'm talking about some negative things. There's some jobs where they want you to lie, they want you to cook the books, they want you to do that. So you wonder why you ain't getting promoted, because promotion comes not from the east to the west, but promotion comes from